Now the first thing that I focus on in this teardown is the removal of the side panel screws. Now there are 4 screws to take out, 2 per panel, and this just gets us access to everything we need for the teardown right from the start. Now surprisingly, we don't need the left panel to help us remove the drives in this computer. The only thing we need the left panel for is to actually take off the front case and faceplate. So that's a little interesting, but regardless, we took it off and you can see the internals here. Not super duper crowded, which is a nice thing. And all we have to do is take out 3 screws initially, 1 screw to take out our floppy drive and 2 to take out our DVD drive. Our drive comes straight out, we just have to remove a couple additional cables. Followed by our floppy drive, which also requires some cables to be taken out. And now the only drive left in this computer is the hidden hard disk drive that you cannot see from the outside unless you open up the computer and then you can see it. But regardless, it is a Maxtor branded hard drive, a classic brand, and is very common during this time period. Anyway, we take off some additional cables that connect to the front lights and buttons, and we also remove 1 bolt that holds our card in place. Now this card just happens to be another modem card, very common for this time period. And we just now focus on taking out all of our cables that are on the motherboard. These are just our IDE cables and other things. So once those are loose, we still haven't taken them out of the computer for some reason, I don't know why, but we begin to take out the power supply. Now this power supply is held in place with 4 screws, so we are going to go ahead and remove those 4. Having screws in the corners allows us to more easily balance the forces and stresses on the case, so it's a very nice secure deal. And as you can see, I'm trying to take out the power supply, but there is a problem. The wiring is actually being held in place, so we have to snip it off, and once that is free, we continue with the teardown. The next thing we do is just pull out all of our wires finally, and now we are left with a very bare setup. So the next thing we do is take out that motherboard, which is now ready to go. Once that is freed, our board comes straight out and we work on removing our CPU. There is the fan and heatsink, which is held in with a tab, and with a little budging and fidgeting around, we finally get that off. And as you can see, we have our metal top ceramic CPU, just another AMD K6, a very nice CPU with a fairly good gold yield. Now, the next thing we do is really the last thing, which is to try and take off that case. We're just going to use a small slotted screwdriver and stick it in between the plastic and metal, and eventually get it loose. Takes a little work, but it snaps open. There is a small speaker on the inside, but that's practically all steel, so we just leave it in place. So the only thing left to do is take off the front panel. And once that comes off, you can see we have some additional wires that were fished through the side and were in the motherboard that we took out the very first time. We take out the wires and we are done. So we have some screws with a metal bracket, some wiring for the front panel, some cabling for the hard drive and floppy drive and other parts. We also have a really cheap A1 power supply. These are absolute junk, but they're great for budgets. We also have a small floppy drive, as well as a DVD drive. And no computer is complete without a hard drive. So this is pretty much a complete computer aside from the memory. We do have a motherboard, as well as a modem card. We do have our fan that is connected to our heatsink, which is further cooling our ceramic CPU. So a very good teardown. Pretty typical things, almost complete, but we were missing a bunch of memory, so that's the only thing that was really missing from this computer. And yeah, that's going to be pretty much it. And yeah, here are our results. And in the next video, we will be taking apart a computer that is not part of the Horde, but rather an old computer of ours that I really enjoyed using throughout my late childhood and preteen years. So, I hope you enjoy the teardown coming up, and thank you so much for watching.